Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wellington Shire Council Ordinary Meeting of the 20th of November 2018. If we could, members of the gallery should note that the Council records and publishes council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate time during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors and councillors ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And if we could rise to the statement of acknowledgement and prayer. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai people, and pay respects to their elders, past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. We have no apologies. Any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Bye.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to conflict of interest, a direct investment interest, at item C5.1.
Moving on to item A4, confirmation of minutes of the previous council meeting. Councillor Bye, you again.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of the 7th of November 2018.
Just to repeat that, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Stevens, I think, was first out of the blocks. Motion opposed. Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from previous minutes?
None, Mayor.
Thanks. No late items?
None, Mayor.
Any notices of motion? Item A8, receiving petitions or joint letters. Nothing outstanding. Item A9, invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much. Mayor, I had an opportunity to visit the Freedom House, which is in Glenhaven Estate in Sale quite recently, and very fortunate there to meet up with Christos, who I know is going to give a presentation tonight, at the end of which I'd like to pay credit to many of the council officers that made this happen. But it's a really exciting project, and I'd like to beg the council's indulgence as we listen a bit more about it and call Christos to the microphone, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor, councillors, for this invitation, and particularly Darren. He made himself very accessible to me when I first moved up to Maffra 2 years ago as a result of Freedom Housing, so I've annoyed him very much. Thank you very much, Darren, for accepting the annoyance. And I've also annoyed your departments quite a lot. Like with anything innovative, it actually rubs up against what we do normally, and so there was quite a lot of, if you like, meditating upon this radically different proposal that was to be built in your shire. But we got through it, and in fact we even had the same with Gippsland Water, and we managed to do the same with them. So obviously we've got a lot of support now for this concept. What I'd like to do now in this limited time is to present to you what this is and why, as councillors, you ought to be very interested in it. First of all, it's the most innovative care and accommodation model that to the best of my knowledge, that I know of in the world. And it's the only one at the moment which complies fully with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and also complies fully with the 2013 NDIS Disability Act, Australian Parliament. So what is Freedom Housing? Freedom Housing came about because my late wife had MS and we were looking after her for quite some time. There came a time when she was too ill to be looked after at home, and the decision was made that she could be looked after in a group accommodation home run by the Multiple Sclerosis Society. That didn't work out as well as we planned, and eventually she was brought back to a home that I'd purchased not far from the group accommodation home, and she was looked after at home 24/7. And it was in the discussions with Pamela where she said there's got to be some different way of looking after a person who has disabilities, apart from struggling at home with inadequate care or being relinquished to a group accommodation home or a nursing home or an aged care facility where all our freedoms are taken away and in return we are toileted and fed. And so I got to thinking about that, and Freedom Housing is the result of that. Slide 1 is the logo of Freedom Housing. We won't be presenting it up there, but I'll ask you to look at it on your laptops. You've been emailed, I think, 8 images. And the first one is the Freedom Housing logo. If you go to the next one, that's Pamela. She was in her mid to late 40s in that photograph. She passed away at 55. And this model is dedicated to her. So moving on to the next slide, image 3. This is an artist's representation of what now has actually been built. I haven't got a drone photo of it as yet, but that'll happen in the next week or so. What you see there is the estate in Sale, the Glenhaven Park estate in Sale, and the street in front of you, the first street there, is, what street is it? I forgot. Is it Mason Street? I'm not too sure. But the other street is Circuit Avenue, Circuit Boulevard, the one at the back. Morgan Street, that's it. So 2 houses face one of those streets and the other 2 face the street at the back, and they're connected through what's called a quay. That building is common property, and access to that quay occurs from the side of Freedom 1, which is the house closest to you, so that it's discreet. The carers don't go in through the front door. And the person with disabilities is cared for under the roof of the house, at the back of the house closest to the quay, but they're within their own private space. If you go to the next image, image number 4, you might want to expand it so that you can have a good look at it. This is a representation. It's not a building drawing, and it's not accurate to what was built, but it is a guide to what there is there. The yellow shaded area is the common area, or the quay, and in that quay we have deep bath therapy, a pool, a physiotherapy room. There's a kitchen and also a lounge, a small room for the staff, which is a bathroom and a locker room, if you like. And there are gardens as well outside and in between. There's access to the house, as you can see. The houses are accessed from the quay. And the carers, or the homemakers as I like to call them, move out into that quay when they're no longer required in the house. The power of this model is that we can achieve very high care, 24/7, and palliative care, and including aged care, in this model at far less cost than the current paradigms allow us to do. If you go to the next photo, which is image number 5, there are 2 of the houses there, and as you see, they blend into the streetscape. The idea is that they ought to look like conventional houses, that they don't stand out at all, and there is only one little indication of a difference, and that is the entrance to the quay, which is just at the left of that photograph there, where you can see the fence terminating, and there's another fence just next to it, and that's a corridor. And that leads along the side of that house to the quay. If we go to the next photograph, image number 6, these are the houses that those houses are connected to, facing out to Circuit Avenue. And from this side, there is no evidence that these are any different to any other house, really, except for the fact that they look architecturally designed. They don't have to look similar, although these aren't the same, they look similar in style. They can be radically different from one another, so people can choose how the houses are designed. And if we go to the next slide, this is the official opening, cutting of the ribbon, and Darren, kind enough to come and cut the ribbon. He was a great supporter. The federal government donated or granted 1.2 million to this project out of the 2.4 Department of Social Services, which was obviously gratefully received by the George Gray Centre. And last image is of the occupants, initial occupants, if you like, and myself and Darren, and also Ian, the CEO of George Gray Centre. There are more people in there at the moment than that photograph suggests. Okay, so if we go back to image number 4. The reason why this is so sought after out there is because when a family has a disability to cope with, or even a frail old age, the ramifications for the family are massive. And the fallout for the community and for local government, state and federal government, is also massive. And quite often what you'll find is that there's a disintegration of the family unit occurring. Now, Freedom Housing allows a cohesive solution to that. And by way of example, I'll explain what is happening in 2 cases here, but I'll explain the one, and the other one is similar. It's an elderly couple in their early 80s. They had 3 children, one with a disability, which they've cared for all their life. And the husband is ailing himself, and before Freedom Housing, they would have had the husband going into an aged care facility. Then it would mean the wife couldn't look after the son because of the physical strength required. So the son would be relinquished to a group accommodation home, and the wife would stay in the family home. And so there's a disintegration of the family in those terms. What they're doing is they've moved into Freedom Housing, and the son is being looked after in there naturally. So is the father, who receives aged care in the home, and the mother lives with them. So this solution allows cohesive solutions, if you like, to problems similar to this. And because there's a combination of aged care and disability care in a private dwelling possible, the sort of uses you could put Freedom Housing to is considerable. And we have a lot of demand from a lot of scenarios in families that are calling for this model. So why is it important for councillors to know about it? I think it's important for councillors to know about this model because increasingly there is a greater awareness of disability, but also a greater expectation of what people may expect in terms of disability. By way of illustrating how frustrating it is with the current architecture, if you like, if a person has a disability, what we did in the past was focus on that person and looked after the disability. So we would put them in perhaps a single bedroom place and make sure everything was accessible. The problem there was that we would freeze them in time. They couldn't, for example, find a partner, have children. They certainly can't go visiting too many people because they don't have a similar house and so on. So I think that if a Martian was to land on Earth, or here, we're talking about here, they would go away and report back that, look, on Earth there is disability and old age, but look, they're going to get rid of that soon. It's just a temporary condition. And all their architecture reflects the fact that it's probably only a temporary thing. They'll fix it one day. But we know that's not the case. We'll always have that. So if a person has a disability, they can't go and visit their brother, their father in a house today because their houses won't accept the wheelchair. They can't go to the toilet and so forth. If they're going off on holidays, the same thing applies. If they go to a hospital and they have to get x-rays, for example, in some cases, some of the machines aren't accessible because of the way that they're placed. They don't factor in the fact that people are in wheelchairs or have a disability. And I think Freedom Housing gives us a glimpse of what is possible in terms of a new paradigm. Not only is it going to reduce misery and increase happiness, but it'll actually vastly reduce the cost of care for the profile group and also members of the family. So in policy making in the Shire, it would be a good idea to keep in mind that yes, there are always going to be people with disabilities, and whatever we're doing in terms of infrastructure has to factor that in. If we're really going to give people in ripe old age, or if they become disabled, the same sort of opportunities as everyone else. And also, if we're serious about cohesion and family unity, then we would also pay a lot of attention to this area. In concluding, since I think that's a cue, as an actor, that's perfectly done, Darren. I'd like to thank you again, and certainly I would love the opportunity to answer questions at some future time, because there's a lot to be said here and we can dig a lot deeper at another occasion. But look, thanks once again, and I am a ratepayer now, and I do vote. And I love living in the Shire. And hopefully I'll see you all again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christos. I'm sorry to... It's amazing, actually, Christos. It is a really good model, and I think you have given us a flavour of exactly what it is, allowing people to have that independence, but also a shared responsibility, so working between it. And these, so family groups can stay together in their own home, but have this shared key that is the... Now, it all might seem very straightforward and easy, but I know from the way that Christos is speaking about this, and you know, the idea that you have across tidal boundaries this shared easement, if you like, is whilst it seems quite obvious, you know, imagine showing those plans to someone. You know, the concept that, oh no, you've got to have a metre away from the back fence. Oh no, we have to connect the two houses together. Oh, you can't do that. I think, you know, there was lots of people who looked at Christos and said, oh no, you just can't do that, you know. And can I please thank quite publicly our development team. I know Johnny Tra in particular was excellent in the way that he developed this through and worked through. Like even our rates department, imagine that, you know, it's split into 4 different titles which are separately rated. They're separate houses. And work out some model to be able to separately rate essentially interconnected buildings is not easy. But Narelle, I think, from our rates department, worked with you in developing that. So, look, I think And it was really interesting the day that the development there, and Darren Chester, the local member, was there, and all praise to him because he was able to get the funding to make it happen. But this model was presented as being, this is something that should be rolled out all over Australia. And I know there was representatives from New South Wales and Tasmania, other councils that were there on that day going, asking, well, how did you get this happen? How did you make it happen? What were the rules and regulations, and how did you do that? And I think we should be very proud of our council to be flexible enough to be able to consider this concept, which in far as George Gray is concerned, is a really revolutionary concept, which is bringing real independence to the most disadvantaged within our communities. And thank you, Christos, for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And Christos, in regard to your suggestion that we should find some more time to spend with you, I think that's a great idea, and we'll look forward to that. And can I say, that's the second time today that I've had a joyous moment, so thank you. Phone. And any questions on notice? On to A11, the Mayor's report. Councillor McCubbin.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move that the Mayor and Councillor activity report be noted.
I'll leave it on. Seconded by Councillor Rossetti. Is that opposed? If not, the motion's carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, another really busy time for the council over the last few weeks. Can I just mention a couple of things there? We just skip through them. The Lockshore Sport foreshore development, what a wonderful development that is. Can we just go down a little bit just so I can remember what's going on? I meant to look at it, but I got so involved in what Christos was talking about. MOV State Conference, Councillor Holt does an enormous amount of work, and it should be recognised, the days that he spends down there advocating on behalf of our council in regard to the MAV. The SO collection, that's Councillor Crosley presided over that. Can I just please publicly thank SO for the donation of that collection to our art gallery. If you get a chance to go down there and see it, it is quite phenomenal. And thank you to SO for doing that. The rest of them, there's a huge amount of the Cameron Sporting Complex. The last weeks of the election campaign brought money was just coming out of the sky. We really loved it. Let's have more of them. Thank you very much to the councillors for their busy time over the last few weeks.
Good. Going to give it up tonight. I didn't get to sing that song. That was moving on to item A12, the Youth Mayor's report. Councillor Marr. Oh, okay. We'd be pleased to receive the report first. It's been one of those days, so it's been a herding cats day, so my apologies for that.
Good evening, councillors. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Gunai people, and pay respect to their elders past and present. Forming these reports really reminds us just how much we've grown and developed in our roles as youth councillors amidst the planning and execution of two successful events. The Upswing Festival, held on the 5th of October, aimed to promote positive mental health amongst our youth by providing opportunities for them to get involved and also just to inspire them to practice self-care by just having a good time and getting out there. We all, including members of Propeller, our freezer group, had designated roles to create this day, and I believe we all learnt the reality of delivering this type of event. These skills again were put to use when it came to organising our next big event, the Youth Q&A panel with candidates standing in our electorates at the upcoming state election. Youth councillors, as well as young members of the community, were able to ask questions about things that concerned the youth and us. We thoroughly enjoyed this experience, and we have workshopped ideas for next time which might encourage candidates to answer the questions directly. I would be understating it to say that there wasn't some frustration with the way some questions were answered. We would also like to thank Councillor Crosley, Councillor Ripper and Councillor McCubbin for attending this event. The excitement doesn't stop there, with planning for next events already underway. Alongside annual events in the Youth Council calendar, the 2019 Step Up Youth Summit and Youth Week, we have decided to encourage diversity, being different and coming together with a colour run to celebrate Harmony Day in March 2019. We have had many opportunities to speak publicly on ABC Radio, Win TV, about different projects and issues, which is one of the reasons why we have decided to include a public speaking component as a part of our meetings, whereby youth councillors can each make a presentation on a certain topic and then receive constructive criticism to develop and enhance our advocacy and leadership skills through public speaking, such as pronunciation of words. We have begun an Instagram page which we hope will engage our peers more effectively than Facebook, which reaches more people our parents' age. Although I must add, we are still working on our current system to ensure enough posts are being published regularly. One last thing I would really like to address tonight is following Prime Minister Scott Morrison's announcement of the $52 million one-off funding to existing headspace services, Youth Council has written to our local Member of Parliament, Danny O'Brien, asking for assurances that he will advocate for Headspace Bairnsdale or Morwell offices to include outreach services into Wellington. We respectfully ask if Council would do the same, as youth mental health issues continue to be one of the key concerns across Wellington, and we have very few services offering support. As always, we welcome any councillors who would like to attend our Youth Council meetings in part or whole to do so. We thank you once again for your ongoing support.
Thanks, Beck. Thanks very much. Councillor Marr.
I'd like to move that Council receive the Youth Mayor's Quarterly Report.
Seconded by Councillor Crossley. Opposed? The motion is carried. I'm wondering if one of the councillors would also like to move a motion from the floor in support of that request that we write in support of that issue for the outreach services. So if anyone's game to have a crack at that? Yeah, like to move that? We have to accept it as a late motion. We have to accept it as a late motion. Someone like to... Councillor Stevens, you'd like to move that?
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Just,
I'm happy to.
I'm happy.
It's not going to be hard just to raise the late motion. So, Mayor, I move that the motion that is about to be proposed by Councillor Marr regarding Headspace be brought forward as a late motion.
I shall second that.
I'm sorry about that unwordy.
I assume that's not opposed. That motion is carried.
Just making sure it's brought up here for you. I'm happy with that.
So that motion is carried on the basis of...
Move Councillor Rossetti, second Councillor Cunninghame.
and unopposed and carried. And now Councillor Marr, if you'd like to move that.
And I'm more happy, I'm sure we are.
It's one of those nights. We're all very happy to support that late motion. I certainly recognise, as we all do, that mental health
We've just given you permission to bring the
Yes.
motion up, so now you need to bring the motion up.
Oh, okay.
We've given you permission to bring a late item up, now you need to put forward the motion.
Okay, I put forward the motion that Council would write to Danny O'Brien and ensure that, and Tim Bull,
Our local members
requesting the surety that they will support continued mental health support services within the Wellington Shire.
So let's just make sure that we get what you're thinking of.
The council write to the local members.
Given that
Parliament? Yeah, that's what I was just...
So that should just stay like that.
Yep.
Advocates for the headspace, Bairnsdale or Morwell officers to include...
the council right to a local members of Parliament to advocate for...
To advocate for... Yeah, it's bottom paragraph, the headspace, to include outreach services into Wellington.
Yes.
That's to include outreach services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I'd just like to suggest how responsive we are.
We're doing it now.
Are you happy with that?
Happy Councillor Crossley seconded that.
You happy with the word?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine.
I'm making the assumption that's not opposed.
Moved Councillor Marr.
Seconded Councillor Crossley. It's not opposed. That motion is carried. wish to speak further, Councillor Maher, in regard to that matter? If not, we will move on.
Well,
And thanks once again, Beck, for your presentation.
Thank you. The Youth Council has done some marvellous work, particularly running 2 really successful events. All of us here around this table know how hard it is to be a volunteer and to work with the community, particularly with youth. And the Youth Council that we currently have really made an impact into the youth space, and we recognise that and we congratulate you, especially the supporters, the supporting groups, Propeller and Freezer. And it's quite interesting to see that tonight we have a film, the Wellington Film Festival, that is currently on at the Sale Cinemas, which unfortunately it was a council meeting night, so we couldn't get there. But I think that we have some really good advocates. Well, we've got some very good advocates, as Councillor McCubbin is supporting many of them, and it will be really good to see how they progress for the rest of the year. So please pass our congratulations on to the rest of the council. Thanks.
If you must, Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to pass on to Beck and the other youth councillors. I actually popped over to the Upswing Festival and a lot of my other colleagues, because we work just over here, and it was amazing to see so many people from the community. It was designed for mental health for younger people, but how many older people was over there as well, supporting their children? The eateries that you provided was a great lunch for me. I really appreciate that. But I just thought I'd pass on what a great event it was, well run, and congratulations to you all. And I look forward to the colour run, which I won't miss with my family. It'll be fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. Can we move on to item B, Report of Delegates? And I understand, Councillor McCubbin, we're going to let you loose again.
That's right. If they wish, rather than hanging around. Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to talk about people in the gallery, Councillor Rossetti. I won't talk too much about this. I was very fortunate as a member of council to attend the Artlands Conference. It's an annual Australia-wide conference of the Regional Arts Network, of which I've attended over a number of years, but I haven't been to one for a few years. It's in Bendigo, which is a massive place in terms of their arts and cultural collaboration which is going on there. I've mentioned a couple of recommendations which, although not formally there, I would like the council to pursue if possible. And that is, I think there is that now that we've currently built this magnificent centre, this cultural centre here, and I think there's an opportunity now for us to revisit our arts and cultural strategy and look ways that we can develop links with our local Indigenous organisations and focus our activities in the name of creative tourism. I know Councillor Crossley had a lot to do in an earlier guise in creative Gippsland. There are enormous opportunities in creative tourism, and Bendigo is very much on the forefront of that, doing, like they had the big Marilyn exhibition there quite recently, the big thing there. They're getting these what's called blockbuster exhibitions coming through town. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we go down that path, but there's certainly huge opportunities in the creative tourism sector that we could take advantage of. And I think that the council should have a briefing on that to at least bring into take the fact that we now have an absolute world-class cultural facility here that we're standing in. And understand that we as a council have $4 million worth of artworks. We have the largest collection of Gippsland artworks in the world. It's quite unique, and we should be very proud of that and something that we can sell to our broader community. I'm also interested, and this is in the context of the master plan of the Wedge, that there's the opportunity, I believe, of developing a teaching and theatre resource there, particularly with the new TAFE down the road there. Imagine offering classes in performing arts and then creating, if you like, a unique theatre experience. Arena has just been relocated to Bendigo, and I absolutely agree we're not a Bendigo, but certainly within Gippsland there is the role for a professional theatre company providing Gippsland stories and access within schools, opportunities for people in the performing arts. It's something that we should pursue. It's so exciting, people are ringing about it already. And that's good. So You know, if the council's happy, I'm happy to bring that up at the master planning for the wedge. It's certainly an opportunity that it's going to take some fleshing out, but if you don't talk about it, it's never going to happen. And I think it's actually something that we can be very proud of. There's certainly opportunities within towns to create to use the arts as a means of creating tourism and employment opportunities. Anyway, it was a very exciting conference, and I thank the council very much for allowing me to attend.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. If we move on now to officers' reports.
I think we need to move the
seconded.
delegates' report. I would like to move that the delegates' report be noted, please.
Oh.
I'm terribly sorry, I should have talked about it
And
afterwards.
Councillor Maffra, I think, was out of the blocks first, and that not opposed. That motion is carried. Now we might move on
Thank you.
to officers' reports. Item C 1.1, Chief Executive Officer report. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the Chief Executive Officer's report be received.
Seconder for that motion. Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not. That motion is carried. Councillor Crosley.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just like to highlight a few things. Again, it was a bit like the Councillors' report. There were lovely positives of the CEO attended, as well as other councillors, as well as councillors, and myself attended the turning of the sod for the $1 million upgrade of the Sale Tennis Court Centre there, so that was really terrific. Also, we had the privilege of launching the synthetic hockey pitch, new pavilion and half court at the Gippsland Regional Sporting Complex there, the stage 2, and it was actually great to see that activity there. And also the next night there was the barbecue, and there was a great swelling of the community came out there to play and engage and really get enlist in a whole variety of activities that will be there at that new pitch, so a lot of excitement there. But also on the business things of engaging with our important organisations that we interface with, Vic Roads, Gippsland Water, Gippsland Local Government Network, which is the combined 6 Gippsland Shires, which meet regularly, and also Gippsland Regional Partnership. So key stakeholders in working together to make this a better place to live in. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Crosley. And moving on to item C 1.2, the October performance report. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the Council receive and note the October 2018 Council performance report as attached.
Second for that motion, Councillor Ripper, I think, was out of the blocks first. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. There's just a few things that I think need to be highlighted in relation to our performance report for October. We've had a very positive start for this financial year, and the year-to-date operating result has shown a $2 million favourable amount on our budget, and that's due to income being better than anticipated, main contributions from rates operating grants and interest on maturing term deposits. We also have got a favourable capital budget of $2 million, which is the final capital grant we received for the Port of Sale, which wasn't able to be collected until this financial year. Obviously, the current surplus we have will not be maintained till the end of the year, because obviously we anticipate that 2/3 of our expenditure will be spent in the remaining part of the year for things like roadworks, pool operation and contract payments for all our summer and autumn works program. It's interesting also to note that our debtors and cash holding position is being very well managed at the moment, and that's going to mean that our working capital is very positive, and hopefully that also helps us with investments and also incurring a little bit of interest, even though interest rates are still fairly modest. Just note that our capital works program has now seen 33 projects completed. There are 25 underway and 47 are well advanced in the planning stages. So, and I think there was an allusion by Councillor Crosby to the fact that one of our major projects, the hockey facilities at the GRSC, have just been recently opened, and they're going to be a wonderful acquisition for all our clubs and community activities in the whole Shire. I should also note a couple of other things, that we've been successful in recent times. I think Councillor McCubbin referred to this. What was that you said about funding coming from the skies or something? Raining funding. We've been very fortunate that we've now just in recent times had a number of announcements, and I'll just refer to those actually with your leave, Mayor. We've got the Stratford Recreation Reserve change rooms. They've got $500,000. Stevenson's Park change rooms, $800,000 contribution. Pine Lodge Tennis Court renewal, $250,000. And of course the big one was the Cameron Stadium redevelopment, which we've received $4 million. And that's going to be a massive project for us to complete, which again is going to be of major benefit to our local people. The other thing that I note that we've had the successful John Leslie Art Prize. You know, John Leslie's legacy is still bringing great benefit to our community, and thank you to his foundation. And that John Leslie Art Prize was on exhibition in October. There was a mention of the SO collection art, which has just been given to our gallery. And we've also received I note a collection of 55 Australian ceramic pieces from Dr. James Baxter, valued at $36,000, and an anonymous donation of $10,000 towards the gallery for a Gippsland textiles collection. So these are all very positive things for our community, Mayor. And the last thing I'd just like to say is that, of course, going back to pools, our outdoor pools will open this Friday, and there will be free swimming Friday afternoon, Friday the 23rd, I think from 2:30 or 3 p.m, I hope. 3 till 7, thank you. That's regardless of weather, so I look forward to seeing. Last year, if I recall, Mayor, it was a very warm afternoon and we had a wonderful turnout for this event. I think the forecast for this Friday is only 15 degrees, which mean the numbers might be down. I may be otherwise engaged, I think. I'm not sure if the great white whale flopping in the Yarram Pool in 15 degrees may be something that no one wants to see, Mayor. And just trying to finish on a high note, of course, if anyone would like to see just exactly what Council is doing and the outcomes, I would get you to have a look at the Know Your Council website. This shows that the Wellington Shire is performing in a very positive way in comparison with other municipalities of a similar size around the state. So I would recommend anyone that's interested in local government have a look at that site. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Again, for one who's delivered the performance reports in the past, I'm appreciative of you turning the performance report into a performance. Well done. Move on to Assembly of Councillors, item C 2.1, Councillor Bai.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the Council note to receive the attached Assembly of Council records for the period 30th October 2018 to the 13th of November 2018.
Seconded, Councillor Ma. Is that opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bai, wish to speak to that? Okay. Moving on to item C 3.1, September monthly planning decisions, Councillor Ma.
I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between 1st of September and 30th of September 2018.
Seconded, Councillor Crosley. Is that opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ma.
The planning permit decisions for the period between 1st to 30th of September, which is found in Attachment 1, and Attachment 2 provides an overview on how these decisions are tracking in comparison to other regional rural areas and the averages, which actually shows that Wellington planners are certainly continuing to do a good job. 49 decisions have been made, and of those decisions I took the liberty to extrapolate some information. And if my figures are correct, 10 of those decisions were with regard to the North Ward, 13 Central Ward, and 25 the Coastal Ward areas, which certainly shows that the coastal planning is very strong at the moment.
Thanks, Councillor Ma. And I think you've, continuing on with item C4 in regard to C4.1, in regard to revocation of unused road licence, Troughton Street, Alberton.
I'd like to move that this matter lay on the table.
We don't need a seconder for that motion.
Formal motion.
It's a formal motion, and that motion's not opposed. The motion's carried.
Yes, Councillor Mark can provide
I'd
If you'd like to
to,
provide an explanation.
at your liberty, I would like to recognise that this is a formal motion. However, I'd like to clarify my reasoning behind this. This matter concerns the construction of the Alberton to Port Albert rail trail, which complements the existing one between Yarram and Alberton. It's requested that further information be provided to Council on the current status, outlining the project planning, the costings and the public consultation proposals with this matter.
Thanks, Councillor Ma. Moving on to item C4.2, York Street Revitalisation Project, Contract 2019-039, Underground Power. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that one, Council adopt the recommendations contained in the attached confidential tender evaluation report at item F1.1, Contract 2019-039, Underground Power, York Street, and two, the information contained in the confidential document item F1.1, Contract 2019-039, Underground Power, York Street. This council meeting designated under Section 77 Clause 2C of the Government Act 1989 as confidential by the General Manager of Buildings and Natural Environment on 7 November 2018 because it relates to the following grounds under Section 89.2 of the Local Government Act 1989. D. Contractual matters be designated confidential information under Section 77 Clause 2B of the Local Government Act 1989, except that once this recommendation has been adopted, the name of the successful tenderer can be made public.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion's carried, and I'm able to announce that the successful tenderer as AusNet Electricity Services Proprietary Limited. So item 4. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm trying to save some time here.
Thank you, councillors, for supporting that. This is quite an exciting project. If you look at, it's not just putting underground the power lines there, because it enables so much more to be done on what is one of the most important thoroughfares of our town, our city, and indeed our shire. We see all of the newer the power lines being underground, and of course all the new subdivisions, they don't have the power lines going down the street anymore because, frankly, power lines are pretty ugly. You go down the main street of Melbourne, down Burke Street, they don't have the power lines hanging everywhere. We can do the same in the principal places of our communities. But it's going to enable so much more to be done on that thoroughfare. We've seen some great improvements on the main thoroughfares through many of our towns. We've seen Hayfield, Maffra, Yarram, many of our main streets are looking pretty schmick. But driving down through York Street at the moment, it looks pretty tight. We've done some work down the main shopping centre, but now it's time to do it down the main thoroughfare. The first stage is getting these power lines underground, get rid of the power poles, which will enable a whole lot of work to be done on the turn-in circles around those corners, and indeed some lighting down the centre as well. So I'm looking forward to this work being done. I'm sure that AusNet won't inconvenience the businesses through there too much, but once it's done, I don't think we'll recognise that main street. So people coming through town, hopefully, people living in Sale, of course, each time they see this sort of work being done, it's more reason for them to stay here and contribute, and the children to stay here or come back to here. But it's also making our towns attractive, is as much about attracting others to come and stay here, whether that's coming as tourists, whether it's coming to work, to be a professional or a tradie. Having the main centres of your towns looking attractive reflects on what the community is like. And I'm sure that people make decisions on where they live, work, play, raise a family based on how these centres look. So looking forward to this work being done, and certainly commending Council on supporting this and the rest of the project.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti, and sorry for my haste to move on. And so we'll move on now to item C4.3, Cunninghame Street Specials Charge Construction Scheme. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council adopt the final cost certificate for the Cunninghame Street Scheme number 1501, Special Charge Street Construction Scheme.
Seconder for that motion, I think Councillor Rossetti had that. That motion's not opposed. The motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much. This is the end of a very long process in terms of the development of the Cunninghame Street precinct. Again, as Councillor Rossetti has just mentioned, these are areas of which we can be greatly proud of. They were developed by a combination of council contribution and indeed by the contribution of the people themselves. What is even better is that the estimation of the cost, once we put it to tender and it was finally delivered, actually came in at a decrease from what we had anticipated. So, of course, that cost saving we passed on to the people concerned. It is an excellent project. I thank very much the workers who constructed it, and yeah, just another reason why Sale is a great place to live, work and raise a family.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Moving on to item C 4.4, Pearson Street and Simpson Street Special Charge Construction Scheme. Councillor McCubbin again.
The Council adopt the final cost certificate for the Pearson and Simpson Street Scheme number 1502, Special Charge Street Construction Scheme.
Seconded, Councillor Rossetti. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin, no need to sit down, to stand up again.
No, indeed. It is another project completed, Pearson and Simpson Street. They look fantastic. 13.8% decrease in the variation in estimated cost and final cost. And that's absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much for everybody who contribute to that scheme.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Moving on to item C 4.5, Mary Street Maffra Special Charge Scheme. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council adopt the final cost certificate for the Mary Street Maffra Special Charge Street Construction Scheme number 1603, and 2, Council officers prepare the final proportionate amounts due to the property owners for the Mary Street Maffra Special Charge Street Construction Scheme number 1603, based on the initial estimated cost of 133,000.
Second of that motion, Councillor Hole. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the continuation of Mary Street area in Maffra that was not sealed, and consequently the Shire's gone out to the residents, and the residents have agreed to have a special charge. This is now completed with being sealed, curb and channeling and trees, and it just finishes off Mary Street in Maffra. So therefore the residences will be getting an invoice in the mail, and the payment stands as originally was quoted, so they should be happy with that. And it's a win-win situation for the dust in that area and for the relevant households. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Ripper. Moving on to item C 4.6, Contract 2019-033, Unsealed Road Construction, Reconstruction Eastern Maintenance Area. Councillor Hole.
My apologies, I need to be excused. I do have another engagement.
Here, I'm going to move the Council adopt the recommendations contained in the attached confidential tender evaluation report at item F1.2, Contract 2019-033, Unsealed Road Construction Eastern Maintenance Area, and 2, the information on the confidential document as per the recommendation.
Second for that motion, Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hole.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Council has to maintain about 1,560 kilometres of unsealed roads throughout our big wide shire, and each year in our budget we make an allowance of money available to try and maintain as much of that unsealed roads as we can to keep them nice and safe to travel on. This year, each year, the money is allocated when the roads are put together in a similar area, and this year we're doing the western, the eastern and the southern, and then in relation to this one, it's primarily around Dargo. There's 2 sections on the Wollongata Road that are going to be dealt with, approximately 10 kilometres with about a 3 kilometre gap between them, and so that'll keep the tourists very happy going up into the Wollongata, and hopefully we won't have to go near that again for some years.
Thanks, Councillor Hole, and I'm pleased to announce the successful tenderer as East Gippsland Road Maintenance Proprietary Limited. Moving on to item C 4.7, Contract 2019-035, Unsealed Road Reconstruction Western Maintenance Area. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council adopt the recommendations contained in the attached confidential tender evaluation report at item F1.3, contract 2019-035, Unsealed Road, Reconstruction, Western Maintenance Area, and the statutory requirements there as read.
Seconded, Councillor By. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crossley?
Thank you, Mayor. As the previous, I think, 5 items on the agenda, roads are a very important part of our responsibility, and this is, as outlined with Councillor Hall, this is the resheeting of the western area as come together to actually make the process as cheap and practicable as possible
That one,
in that area. These works include gravel resheeting sections of Glen Cairn, Kellyairs, Stony Creek, Mathers and Knackeries Road, as well as parts of McAvoy's Track. So again, fairly rugged territory out there, but certainly requires this regular resheeting and maintenance, and I'm sure the users of those roads will appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Crossley, and I'm pleased to announce that the successful tenderer as East Gippsland Road Maintenance Proprietary Limited. We move on now to item C 5.1, quick response grants. Councillor By.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to be excused on a conflict of interest, a direct interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council note the information regarding applications received under the Quick Response Grant Scheme for the period July 2018 to October 2018 as at Attachment A.
Second for that motion, Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, motion's carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillors, for supporting. I always love going through this list because you have a look at the grants in there, and there are grants in there for facilities and for events. Up to a couple of grand. You also get grants in there for $500 quick response for typically young sports people going and representing our communities. And all of these grants are just a small part of the overall value of those events and those facilities, because they're typically all run by volunteers. For our community to be able to put these sorts of events on and facilities on for our residents, we can chip in a little bit to help, which is great. But I'd also say that not all applications actually get up. There's quite a stringent criteria to make sure, amongst other things, that there is a community benefit, and it's a demonstrated community benefit. So often there are unsuccessful events and sponsorships, and not necessarily because sometimes because they don't understand the application process, but it's not just money being given out willy-nilly. There is a process to make sure that it does go to those who are most deserving, because of course the money is hard paid for by our ratepayers, and we also want to be sure that it's well spent. But it is, as I say, Mayor, it is reflected in some amazing events and facilities for our communities, and we're chipping in a small part of what is a great benefit from those volunteer groups. So I thank those volunteer groups for the work they put in on these great events.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. We just get Councillor Buyback. I don't mean buyback. Yes. Got Councillor Buyback on a buyback scheme, so we're right now. We could go to item C 5.2, Briagolong Quarry Reserve Committee of Management Minutes. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move, that Council receive the minutes from the Briagolong Quarry Reserve Committee of Management's general meeting held on 14th of October 2008.
Seconded, Councillor Hall. Is that motion opposed? If that motion is not opposed, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor. For those councillors and execs who are going out to a community consultation at Briagolong this week, you'll be able to see the work that this Quarry Reserve members have done. So I won't speak any more than that, other than if you're available, it'd be well worthwhile to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. No urgent business, CEO? This is the opportunity for gallery comments. So just to lay out some of the parameters, gallery comments are an opportunity for members of the public to raise any particular matter they wish. This allows those in the gallery to speak directly to councillors, but it is not a forum designed for open discussion or debate. We will listen respectfully to what you have to say and make the commitment that the Mayor will respond to you in writing within 1 week if required, and a copy of that response will be circulated to all councillors. This is not a forum for members of the public to lodge complaints against individuals, including councillors and staff, particularly as that individual gets no public right of reply to any matter raised. We take complaints seriously, and in line with the guidance from the Victorian Ombudsman and the Local Government Inspectorate, we request that any specific complaint against an individual be put in writing. This way your concern can be properly dealt with while ensuring fairness to all parties concerned. If you wish to speak, we remind you that part of the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on our website, if that's working. Council's official minutes will record that you have spoken to Council and the subject you spoke to Council about, but will not record specific comments. We ask that you state your name in full, where you are from, and you have 3 minutes. Do we have any contribution from the gallery? Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Ron Darcy from Maxima Job Link across the road. It's been 5 months since the first time that I came into this chamber and introduced myself to you all. And what a 5 months it's been for us. As a not-for-profit disability employment service, coming into a field that had many people doing similar things to us. It wasn't easy, but I'm proud to say that we've been received really well. I came here today to thank the Council for support. It's been amazing the way that we've been received. People have adopted our services quickly, and I'm proud to say that as of this week, we're advertising for another full-time staff member in our sale office. So in a short 5 months, you know, we now have 3 local people employed full-time here in Sale, and we're looking forward to expanding further. We've seen some amazing opportunities created and nurtured for people with disabilities, and we're loving that we get to continue that work here in Wellington. So thank you very much for your support.
Thanks, and great to hear your success so far, so I look forward to seeing how it unfolds for you. Thanks very much. I think we're now in your hands, Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now, I'll be guided by you, Mayor, because I'm not sure exactly which item we're going into closed session about, but I'll move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Section 89(2) of the Local Government Act 1989 to consider, and I'm going to go for item H actually, a matter which the Council considers would prejudice the Council or any person. Because it's not a personnel matter, so it's got to be an item H, I figure.
Seems quite reasonable. Is it? We happy with that? Need seconded? It's not opposed. Motion's carried. I'll move to closed session.